Hello, my name is George Brown. I'm the president of SalesWorks Systems. I'm here today to introduce you to the content for Metamorphosis. And Metamorphosis is about changing the business you're in today from the current perpetual license model, time and material model, to a rapidly repeatable IP-based business model that serves up IT the way consumers want to consume it. Now, the way that we've architected the content is based on role and partner type. So there'll be the role, the marketing, sales, business leadership, finance, and admin, and there'll be the partner types that we will address, whether it's an ERP partner, an ISV, or a CRM partner. So throughout the content, you will see that you can select a path through that content that will cover the content specifically for you. Now, what you can expect is detailed information around what this transition will look like. This transition is both going to be challenging as well as rewarding for those partners that are able to make this transition successfully. Now, the pace of change that we're We are in the middle of unprecedented change in our technology business right now, and it's converging upon all of the partner types in the Microsoft ecosystem to create the perfect storm. And by that I mean there are three fundamental factors that are driving this. Factor one is that IT is rapidly becoming commoditized. In fact, today, people expect IT just to work, and in fact, they expect there to be an app for that. And if we were going to blame that on anybody, we would blame it on these guys, Apple, because they created a platform and a device that allowed us to expect IT to be served to us instantly and to just work. The secondary thing that I want to talk about is the combination of mobile when it comes to commoditized IT. The very fact that we have mobile devices means that people are accessing the data in different ways at different times and expect different types of information and applications to serve that up. Now, the third part about this converging storm that concerns me the most is that the value of services is diminishing. In other words, the amount of money customers today want to invest in professional services to provision their applications is actually decreasing. Now, I'll talk more about that in a few minutes, but it's one of the things that keeps me up the most at night. In forming some of our conclusions around this transition to the new paradigm in computing, I wanted to share with you four very interesting facts. And this will depend, of course, on when you actually watch this video and what year and month. This is being recorded in summer of 2012. But think about it this way. In the summer of 2012, the iTunes App Store downloads 46 million applications per day. That is correct. 46 million applications per day, far outstripping their music downloads. Another very interesting thing, something we would all be extremely envious of, is the market penetration of tablets. Think about it. Just 3 years ago, the market share for tablets was 2% of US adults. At the end of 2011, that market share for US adults had grown from 2% to 29%, meaning that if you look around any office today, the executives, the business managers, etc., they're sporting tablets and they expect to access information using that tablet. The third point that I would make that I find interesting and fascinating in terms of correlation to our industry was that in 2002, mobile phone subscriptions, for the first time in history, passed landlines. And in fact, as of 2002, the consumption of landlines actually started to descend. So while it's descending, the mobile applications continue to climb exponentially. And then one other piece of interesting fact that I bring to the table here was that in May of 2012, for the first time in history, accessing the internet over mobile devices surpassed desktop access in India. This is not a major IT market if you think about it in terms of the Western world, but in that market, mobile users were accessing the internet more profoundly than the desktop users. Now, thinking about the transition that we're about to undertake, I want to share some timelines with you today. And so thinking about this and thinking about how long each of us have in our own local markets, it's all really dependent on, regulations depending on the countries. It also depends on the internet infrastructure in the countries. It depends on a lot of factors. But in most of the North American markets, for example, or the Western European markets, we're going to expect a transition timeline much like what you're seeing here on the slide today. Now, if you look at the road ahead, I want to point out, as I said earlier in this presentation, that the road ahead will be rocky. In fact, I sometimes use this analogy, and that is it would be like trying to change the tire on your car while going down the road at 20 miles an hour. Now, it's not impossible to do that. You could think about all the ways that would be possible, but think of the challenges that it would create while you were still trying to drive to your destination. And that's why I've painted this picture of a very steep and rocky road ahead of us. And why I say that is we must control our business, keep our business running while making the change. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, and that's on the bottom of the slide there, that coil, is what I would term the unwind rate. We have a very challenging time for us because the change in paradigm also equates to a change in cash flow to us as partners. So instead of getting paid for a perpetual license in advance, getting paid for all of our services in advance, we're going to get paid for licenses over time or use of licenses over time. We're going to get paid for the IP that we bundle in with that software over time, and we will get a portion of our services. And I said earlier, those will likely go down as we go forward. So controlling the unwind rate, and in other words, controlling the rate at which we stop selling perpetual licenses is also important. So there will be a balancing act here as we keep our business optimized and running in our perpetual time and material basis and start making the transition to a repeatable volume business. Now, these two forces are the inflection point. I talked previously about the inflection point of mobile versus landlines being in 2002. We think the inflection point, when I say we, this is a consensus amongst the analysts, people like Gartner, IDC, Saugatuck, Salesworks, people looking at this market. Sometime around 2014, 2015 is when the inflection point is expected to happen. And that means when more companies will make a choice to go for subscription-based or repeatable IP over a traditional customized on-premise solution. So we think that's the time horizon we have in front of us. And as I've already said, that also is the challenge we have when we think about, trying to change that tire while the car's still moving. Now, I want to share with you 3 secrets to the success in making this transition. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to say to you, the secret to making a transition from our current business model to the new paradigm is going to be to think of this as a brand new business. In fact, if I could challenge you to one thing, I would say treat this new business as if you know nothing about it. Because when we contaminate it with the ideas that we had that created our existing business, we tend to make mistakes. We make mistakes on cash flow, we make mistakes on pricing, we make mistakes on everything. This is a very different business than you've ever been in before. And so I'm going to ask you to have everybody in your organization watch these videos, watch these webinars, understand the principles of this business, and then decide how you will create a new entity within your existing business to drive this. Okay, the second secret to success, and this is very challenging for most partners, is that we have to take the V in VAR, that stands for value, and change that from value in services to value in know-how, methodology, IP, package services, etc. We've got to learn to package up our value in a way that's not detectable in a price per hour. We have to make that conversion because that's how the customer wants to consume IT today. They want to know per user per month, what will this investment be? And the third secret to making a successful transition is going to be for you to figure out how to monetize this IP you have in the monthly revenue stream the customer pays out. Because keep in mind, customers have a couple of objectives. One is to make this investment operating expense versus capital. The second thing is to lower their cost. And the third thing is to make it easy. So we've got to figure out as partners how to take our code, our know-how, our methodologies, our package services, etc., and monetize it into that monthly spend the customer will have for their IT solution in the future. Those are the three secrets to making a successful transition. And if we can get our collective heads around that, we're going to have tremendous success as we go forward. In addition to the three secrets, there are a number of other key attributes that will help in the success of your transition. First and foremost will be a laser focus on the IP that you already have and the addressable market it serves. All right, most of us, if you think about it, we come from a technology background. We don't view the value the same way the customer does in the IP we already own. So that's going to be key to our success. First of all, understand what we have and what is the addressable market it serves. The next thing is to get a crystal clear understanding of the demand for that IP or the market we serve and what the value proposition is for that potential customer. Because we have to strengthen our marketing muscle as we go into this change, and we have to get the value proposition right so we can attract and convert customers in a cost-effective way. The third key to success, I've talked around the surface of the economic model, but we've got to get our economic model right. The economics of this new repeatable business model, of this new paradigm, are counterintuitive to how we built our businesses in the past. And that counterintuitive nature of it is what will cause us to make mistakes if we don't pay attention to it. There are detailed webinars on the economic model related to this transition in the Metamorphosis content you have. Please have your CFO look at it. If you own this company, you look at it. Everybody should understand this economic model. The fourth element to the successful transition in terms of keys to success would be the operating model. How do you consistently deliver the value to these customers in a way that is friendly, really good service, at the same time cost contained, and therefore difficult for one of your competitors to enter the same market? Today, one of the things that we have is challenges from other products, other partners competing in our own space. As we operationalize the new repeatable IP business, right, it's going to be very difficult for people to enter your market once established if we have the operating model right. Now, I think I've mentioned to you more than once now that this is going to be challenging. Let me point out some very large rocks in this channel we're trying to navigate. And let me start with some of the underpinnings of the economic model, the ones that I think keep me awake the most at night. Now, first and foremost, from an expected business impact, what I would suggest is that there's going to be lower margin on each deal that we sell in the future. And therefore, we're going to have a lot more customers if we want our revenue to remain the same. Now, we think about less margin, and that's mainly because the margin we earn will be paid to us in a different way, right? Because we're going to get part of that revenue stream from either the publisher or the own IP that we have. The other thing that I'm going to introduce to you is what we call the license correlation principle. And that really tells us that the lower the perceived value of licenses in the mind of the buyer, the less amount of services they want to invest in. Okay, and that's complicated. And so let me show what I mean by that. And one thing we've been tracking at SalesWorks for the last 30 years, yes, there's a reason I'm bald and got gray hair, right, is the correlation between the value of the license or size of the deal and the number of dollars in services we get. We call that software to services ratio. We know that if someone invests, $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000 in licenses, they expect to pay a lot more in services than the customer that invests $5,000 or $10,000 in licenses. Because at one end of the scale, they expect maybe up to $4 in services for every dollar in license. As we move down, there's quite a slope, as you can see on the slide. It gets quite low to where we get a customer that invests, say, at the very low end, the lowest we've tracked is $1,000 in licenses. And guess what? When they spend $1,000 in licenses, they want to spend about $500 in services to put it in. So there's a real correlation between the perceived value of the license and the value of services. That's what worries me about the big impacts ahead, because we can say it's all about adding more services to the package, but to the degree the customer is paying X dollars per month to use the software, they equate that to the value of services. There's a correlation in their mind. All right. The other thing that I would suggest is this correlation will affect our ability to get all of our services up front over time. I think that potentially, and not now, so in 2012, 2013, 2014, I'm going to say get as much of the services as we can at the highest possible gross service margin as possible. But in my planning, my advice to you is to plan to have to amortize some of those services. It's good news, bad news. The good news is, if you sell a 2-year contract and renew a 2-year contract, that extra value of services is extra gross margin for you in the second term. The bad news is you don't get all the money up front. All right? So those are expected business outcomes, things that I think you have to be very careful of, things that are covered in detail in Metamorphosis content in terms of how to deal with that. Now, the second part is going to be the organizational transformation, right? Because this is going to be a significant body of work internally to maintain the business you have, while, like I said, completely changing the business beside you. So there's going to be a period of time where you'll have a mixed mode operation, what we would call traditional business as well as repeatable business. And that's going to cause you conflicts. If you don't manage this carefully, this will undermine your whole ability to make this transition. Because when we do a mixed mode operating process, we tend to always double task people, right? So if you think about this, what's going to be very critical as we go forward is thinking about bringing new talent into your organization to drive the repeatable business, leveraging the years of skill and experience your organization has, but not contaminating it with that thinking. We have to think differently as we go forward. Now, the other big rocks that we think that'll be there, kill that part. So we think about the organizational transformation, it's everything from how we bill, right? Because we bill today in a very different way than how we'll have to bill in the future, how we'll manage our input costs to the equation. But think about the role of each layer in your organization. Leadership is going to have to change. Your core metrics are changing. All right. We can look at finance and administration in your organization. They have to get very sharp at service level agreements, managing the contracts, managing the renewal periods, etc., in order to keep the cash flow hose, that cash pipeline into your organization. Let me say that marketing is undergoing a significant and material change. In fact, things that we've noted in the changes of buying behavior would tell me that marketing is going to become extremely important in the future compared to what it is today. And you might know, I would argue today that as partners, you do not spend enough in marketing now, and you're going to have to invest more heavily. Why? Because the role of marketing is changing. Buyers are coming to us, finding us, becoming informed about us, forming an opinion about us before ever talking to your salespeople, right? And that's all marketing, by the way. All right, our sales teams are going to have to change because we're going to have to go from, maybe selling one deal every 2 months to selling one deal a week or one deal every 2 weeks to compensate for the changes in the economic model that we see forecast. We're going to have to look at our service delivery people. Now, those service delivery people that want to start with the process of tell me what you want and we'll tell you how we'll build it for you. We're going to change that to very prescriptive. Here's what the application does. Here's what you need to change in your business so the application will fit your business. Now, it's not quite as hard and cold as that, but there's going to be a significant change in that process. Now, that will also speak to changes in our support. And I know many partners today don't even have a support desk, but think about this. The support desk function is going to be a customer sales function in the future. They're going to both have to know how to support it as a team, as well as how to cross-sell and upsell the contracts. Because once a customer is onboarded to your application, once they're using your application, the main point of contact will be that support organization, like the consultants are today. And that support organization is going to have a hard time handing off a cross-sell or a contract renewal or something to another person. That's going to be a cold handoff. Think of the transformation that is going to have to be undertaken in your organization to make that happen. And lastly, we have to get to formalizing our IP. And let's call that product development. And by product, it could be know-how, it could be a method, it could be a way of lighting up servers, provisioning it rapidly, and applying some of the code to it that we own. But we have to get into formally packaging our products in whatever form that is, and then developing them over time. And in the absence of that, we will never access that royalty stream or that stream of revenue that customer pays out. And like I said, that's a very important secret to this business. So I want to say to you today, thanks for watching my overview to this transition. Please get everybody in your organization to watch it. And do it today. It's the middle of 2012. We're already behind. I need you to take action today because I need your business to survive and grow and take advantage of this tremendous opportunity. Thank you.